Right, good morning and welcome to everybody here in our Voices into Africa monthly webinar. Today we celebrate World Book Day and we are joined here with our speaker, author, coach, Kyle Jantjies. And just by way of introduction, I don't want to take too much of his um, fame away from him because he's going to be sharing with us Carl has published 16 books, is a book coach, a publisher, speaker, and the founder of your book business card program, which is great. Carl mainly writes about fantasy because he likes to make up stuff and develop worlds and create an alternate illusions of life, which I think is great. What he calls the what if mindset. And that fits in so nicely with a lot of speakers who speak on things like innovation and things like that. So I think we're in good company. And mostly Carl helps people who are aspiring authors. He's got this weird thing about running around open places, interviewing people like, what's the book that's hidden inside you that you don't know that you have, which I find very brave and very admirable to be able to just run around like that and do it. Most speakers are introverts and are hiding in places that we don't know. So we welcome Kyle, and Kyle, thank you very much for joining us on this wonderful occasion. Tell us a little bit about World Book Day and why we celebrate that.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Bruce, for having me. Thank you to Voices in Africa, Red Jacket speakers, and for everybody that's tuning in. I really appreciate having you here. World Book Day is extremely important. It is a day recognized by UNESCO where we celebrate reading, writing, and everything that is books. If I think of the literary world has been here since Egypt was in its good old days, in its heydays. People have been writing forever, and it's a art that will continue until the end of time, I think. Because writing books, reading literature, all of those kinds of forms is possibly one of the best ways to get what you want said and out of there. It is one of the best ways to structure all of your thoughts, to put it into an easily digestible format, where it can be either broken down into very small bits, or it can be an encyclopedia of ideas that you want to put down. Reading and writing is the best way, and what World Book Day does is it highlights or spotlights the importance of reading and writing and books especially.
All right, that's brilliant. And I also read today is Shakespeare's birthday. So he was born on this day in 1564, just before
I
you,
thought, no.
Cindy. And he supposedly died on the same day as well. So that's in 1616. So I don't know if that's true or that's just a literacy thing that they put in. But yeah, today is Shakespeare's birthday. So happy birthday, William. And we still celebrate your works. And he's also the creator of over 4,000 words that we use today commonly. And a word that he invented like eyeball. Who would have thought? Anyway, so we move on. Let's get our attention back to Kyle and where we are going. So, Kyle, you said you've written a number of books, 16. That's quite a library, a whole bookshelf. How did you get started? What inspired you? I know you come from a scientific background. You spent time as a teacher. Why are you an author?
I When I was in school, I realized that I was extremely academic, well-versed in academics. But at the same time, I had a very strong creative mind.
Mm.
Uh, I'd love to create. And while I was in school, I had ideas for three things: either to create games, create movies, or write books. And I think it was in Matric 2013 where while I was waiting for my Matric results, I had this idea for a story, and I thought, oh wow, this is an amazing story. Once I write this, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be a millionaire. I was wrong. I was wrong. But I sat down while I was waiting for my matric results, and I wrote that. I didn't have a computer at the time. I just had this little tab. They call it a Momo, uh, 2 gig RAM. Uh, and I got it as a gift for being valedictorian for matric year. So I wrote the book down and I wrote it out in a month, and I was so excited about it. I thought, wow, I'm really good at this. And I sent that through to all the publishers, and all of them rejected me. But I'm somebody who is resilient, so I kept writing. 2014, and I wrote another book, sent it through to the publishers, all rejected me. 2017, I thought, let me switch genres. Instead of writing fantasy, let me write Christian fiction. Wrote that. It took so long. Um, and again, all rejected me. And I said, let me go back to fantasy. That was more fun. And I wrote a fourth book until I realized what it is that I was doing wrong. And it's one of the things that I speak on. Your great ideas are not necessarily winning ideas. There's a process to turn your great ideas into winning ideas. And I learned the secret of that process. So while I was writing the fourth book, I stopped halfway. I deleted everything, practiced how do you actually write good books. And then I wrote my fourth book, and that's the first book that got published in 2020. And since then, I've published 16, written more than that, but I published 16. In 2020, I published 4 books. 2021, I had a desire. I wanted to write and publish 10 books in 1 year. That only came out to 9 because I was exhausted. Every night from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. was my writing time. And I was trying to push out like 5,000 words a night just so that I can get done. And obviously that takes its toll on you. But I got it done. I finished 9 books. And since then, I've been just been writing and planning whatever comes next.
Okay. Well, okay. So you kind of scaring our audience, sitting and writing from 10 until 2, but we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that. So you've obviously learned a whole lot, and now you help others write books. What does that entail? Give us a short synopsis of what you do for authors or is aspiring authors.
So I think it was 2 years ago when I started my book coaching business. As I said, I was a high school teacher, and then I didn't have a high school degree. I have my degree in biology, so I wasn't a teacher by degree, but I was a teacher. And I lost my job, and being in the PSA, I looked around and I saw all these people have businesses. They all decided they're going to take their expertise and turn it into their own business. And I said, let me do that. And I saw a lot of messages on Facebook, Instagram. Hi, Kyle, I love your books. I have my own book idea. Can you help me? All these things. And I decided, okay, there's a demand. Let me create a supply for it. So I started my business for book coaching. My book coaching comes in 3 packages. So the first is I run a 5-day book coaching challenge, or as I call it now, I call it a 5-day book intensive. So it is 1 hour every single day, me and the client one-on-one, working on their book idea. And the aim of that is to get clarity on the idea. A lot of times when people want to write, they'll say they have the idea, they know what they want to write, but when they start, they just don't know how to start. And the reason is because in their head is so many ideas that they can't figure out which one to grab and which one to start with. So the important part of actually starting writing your book is first to compartmentalize all of those ideas. I have a framework called the Bloom framework, BLOOM. B stands for brainstorm. So that's one of the things that we do. I tell the client, just talk. Everything you want to put in the book, if you think it's worth it or not, talk. I'll be making notes and we'll brainstorm. We'll put everything that you have in your head on paper. That way we can visualize it. Then the L is for linking. Now we're looking at ideas that work together. So what are the ideas that work together? We link all of those ideas together. The third one is organize. So now that we've got all the ideas that are organized, the ideas that are linked, We start putting them into a proper structure, a framework that we can work. Basically, a skeleton for the house that we want to build. And then finally, the other O is outline. So now we're actually working on, these are your chapters, these are your sub-chapters, subheadings, these are the quotes you want to use. If you are writing a Christian book, these are the scriptures. These are everything that you want to put in the book. We'll figure those things out piece by piece by piece, because you want to make sure that you have a plan fleshed out before you even start writing chapter 1. If you start jumping into chapter 1, you run out of words very quickly, and then you think you wrote the book. I had somebody just the other day on TikTok message me saying they've written a book and they need help publishing it. And the first question I always ask these people is, how many words is your book? Because some people are a bit deluded about how many words a book should be. And she said it's 1,200 words. And I said, oh, that's not a book. I've written emails longer. So you're going to run out of words very quickly if you don't do any planning. So that's the important part. And then the final letter is M, which is multiply. And multiply means go back to every single step and redo them, flesh it out larger and larger, because when your book is done, you want to make sure you put everything in that book. You don't want to have to come back to you later and add more. Put everything in the book. Make sure it's well fleshed out. It's detailed. It's understandable. It's structured, because this is going to be something that is going to carry you forward in your career. So that's the first step of my my book coaching. It is the 5-day intensive. And usually I do that just so that people can, even if they don't want to work with me on my 6 and my 12-month mentorships, they can take that blueprint that we figured out in that 5 days and go and continue on their own.
Yeah.
So that's the 5-day intensive. Then I've got a 6-month mentorship. The 6-month mentorship is me coaching you with your writing and then eventually publishing your book. So we'll take the blueprint that you worked out, and then I'll go through the coaching with you every month. I give you your targets that you need to write. We meet up maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks. As you finish a chapter, you'll send it and I'll edit, and we'll continue back and forth like that until the book is done. And then I'll go through the publishing phase with you also to get the book done. That's the 6-month coaching. And then the 12-month mentorship is my what I call the authority mentorship. It's where you don't just have a book, but now you know how to use the book. There's a lot of speakers out there who have books, and they'll tell you not only do they not get sales, but it's doing nothing for them. And that's a tragedy, because your book should be working for you. Yeah. So in the 12-month mentorships, it's where we do the coaching, we do the publishing, but we also do authority building, audience building, book launch. We set up your funnels. We want to make sure that when you are ready to launch, you've got the audience, you've got the authority, and from that you'll get a stream of opportunities. One of my clients who's now joined the PSA under my instruction, she's joined the PSA. Patricia, we busy with her audience building now, and in 1 week she has 3 videos. One is at 90,000 views, one is at 30,000 views, and one is at 60,000 views, because we've worked on a strategy that works for her. And her TikTok has just exploded. She says every day she's getting messages. She got 3 radio invites from that. We're working on workshops for her, because you need to build authority and opportunity with your book.
That's amazing.
So those are the 3 things I do.
Wow. Okay. So there's lots on offer, and it looks like a very professional kind of outfit that you're doing. Now, I've got another question. Obviously, we're speaking now to speakers with Voices into Africa, and I've heard this when I joined the Speaking Society. Every speaker needs a book. And I've kind of carried that forward. I have a number of books, and I found that has changed. What is your opinion? Does a professional speaker need a book, and why?
Absolutely. I've got a book on Amazon called Your Book is Better Than a Business Card. It is completely free on Amazon. I put it for free on Amazon because I know what books do for speakers. I've gotten a few speaking gigs from that, just from having that book out for free. And in that book, I list 20 reasons why every professional person should have a book of their own. I've also included people who have used their books to multiply either their business, their ministry, whatever it is that they do. Um, how do people use their books? And I've said that your book is it's like a business card that is on steroids. It
Mm.
does something that is incredible for your business or for your brand. If I think of an example, I was at Comic Con. I was at Comic Con in 2024, 23, I think, one of the two. Um, and I had business cards out there, and I was selling obviously my books. And I sold a lot of books that weekend, and I gave out about 200 business cards that weekend. The only people that messaged me were the people who bought my books. People that took my business cards, they didn't contact me because they found really no value in that. Unless they're actually looking for me, they don't. Your business card is not going to do anything. But the people who read my books, they saw my value, they saw what I can put out. And from that, I had one speaking gig and I had a contract with Funza to write for them also. And it was paid. So that's one of the things. Another thing that I always like to say is that for the audience, if you can put up your hands, if you have a degree, you can lift up your hands and you'll find out a lot of people, they lift up their hands. Then I ask, how many of you have experience in what you do? Almost everybody's putting up their hands. I ask, how many of you have CVs or resumes? They're all putting up their hands. And then I ask, okay, finally, how many of you have books? And you'll just see all the hands go down because 0.016%, that's the actual number, 0.016% of the world has actually published a book.
Wow.
There are more millionaires in the world than there are published authors. So as soon as you write a book, you've set yourself apart from your competitors. Suddenly you, I gave you this example even of a cricket coach. If you have two cricket coaches that come forward for an opportunity, and one has written a book, the 101 best cricket strategies, most likely that person is going to be chosen because a book communicates three things. It communicates, number one, that you are knowledgeable on the topic because you wrote a book about it. Number two, you are passionate about the topic because you wrote a book about it. And finally, number three is you can communicate that knowledge because you wrote a book about it.
Yeah.
And those are three things that every speaker also needs to have said about them, that they know what they are talking about, they are passionate about what they're talking about, and they can communicate what they are talking about. So every person should have a book of their own.
There we go. There we go. And yeah, if you're listening to this and you haven't yet written a book, time to get your ANGG and start writing. So let's go through that process. So we work with, and let's just speak about speakers and thought leaders and things. So say you're kind of starting out with an idea. So I speak on leadership or, grit or restructuring, or I've been through a certain circumstance and I speak on that and I want to get there. What would be my kind of initial steps? How do I get off the starting block?
So the problem that people always have is they start with chapter 1. You never want to start with chapter 1. You start with chapter 0, which is the planning document. Usually what I have is I have 3 documents open up on my PC. Because I write fiction or fantasy, I have a document for the plot, I have a document for the world building, and I have a document for the characters. You don't need that many, but you need to have at least one planning document where you are fleshing out everything. If you want to use pen and paper, that's also fine. I would recommend the Bloom framework. So start by just putting everything in. What I like to do is, I've explained this also. If I'm just going to use fantasy maps as an analogy, but I'm speaking on non-fiction books. When you plan out a fantasy map, the first thing I do is before I write the book, I draw out a map that might work. And then what happens is I'll put the main points. So I have ideas in my head of main storylines that I want in the book. So in your head, you usually have, these are the main ideas that I want to address. Whether you're writing leadership, these are the main points that I need to speak on. Those are going to be your markers where the major things are going to happen. I usually say make a list of 10. So in the case of nonfiction, ask yourself 10 questions that need to be answered. Once you have those 10 questions, you now already figure out these are the markers that I want to put into the book, how I want to flesh things out. And now the next job is what comes between those markers. Okay, I know something happens there, I know something happens there, I know something happens there. What happens in between those? How do I get from here to there? And then that's the next phase. That's where you outline and organize comes in. You need to flesh those ideas out. Let's say we're talking about leadership and we're talking about how do you lead an unmotivated team. Now you figure out, okay, let's ask 5 questions about how can we lead unmotivated teams, 5 questions. Let's flesh it out with solutions, 3 solutions per question. You can give more if possible. 3 is just something that's to get a structure in. 3 things to motivate unmotivated teams, and so forth. So you're just breaking things up into smaller and smaller and smaller bite pieces. You're not writing yet. You've just fleshed it out. Because I guarantee you, once you've done the planning, the writing is going to be 100 times easier.
Yeah.
So you've done the planning, you figured out these are my chapters, these are subheadings, these are the answers, the questions that I'm answering. These are even the stories that you want to put into the book. Make sure you put it in your planning also. Don't try and think of it on the spot. Put it in your planning. These are the stories that I want to use. These are the analogies. These are some people I like to quote when I'm doing these things. So you put all of that into the planning document, right? And once you've got all of that, then you start with an introduction page. And usually this is one of the homework that I give in the 5-day intensive. I tell them you need to write a page or 2 pages of an introduction. And it must answer 3 things. It must answer, who am I writing this for? What Patricia was, I'm writing this to single mothers, and you're explaining why, da, 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 da. Then you're saying, what do you expect them to get out of this book?
Mm.
And then finally, the third question is, at the end of the book, what change do you expect to see? And once you figured all those 3 things out, now you have an end goal for the book. You fleshed out your map. You've got your structure of your book planned out. You've got your end goal. You've got your starting goal. Now you know, okay, I'm ready to write. So once that part is settled, I guarantee you everything will be done very quickly. I've seen people write their books who struggled for 2 or 3 years just to write. Once they've done that, they wrote their books in 3 months and it was done.
Wow, that's
because they fleshed it out, the planning.
Yeah.
Then the second part is you need to now get consistent with your writing.
So share some ideas there for us, Carl, because I think one of the things, and I fully understand, if you're going to paint a wall, 80% of the work is preparation, because then the painting comes easy. And I think it's the exact same thing with writing a keynote or a book. One of the things that a lot of people struggle with is finding time to write. Maybe you can just share some of those there. How other than, sitting yourself down with a seatbelt and say, I'm going to sit here, what motivates you to do that without losing sleep?
So one thing that I always say is, because that's actually the main concern that people have, I don't have time. And the first thing that I would say is that you have to come to the understanding that if this is something that you want to do, you are going to have to set some time aside. Time is not magically going to fall into your lap to write. I've had people say, oh, if I just had like a 3-month break, then I can write this book. And in COVID, they had a 3-month break and they never wrote it. Because when you want to write, you need to make sure that you decide in your head, I'm going to write this book, and you set time aside. In 2021, when I wrote the 9 books, I was working full-time as a teacher. I was getting my master's degree in biology. I was getting my black belt in ninjutsu. I had family commitments. I had church commitments. I had all these things that was going on in my life. but I decided this is what I want to do. I set a goal for myself. And the reason why I had to write from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. is because that was the only time I had available. And I knew exactly how many words I wanted to write. And I needed at least 4 hours for that. Um, so that's why I took that time out to write. You don't have to write 5,000 words. You can write 300, 500, as long as you're being consistent with your writing.
Mm.
So if you can find a 15-minute, a 30-minute, a 1 hour slot where you can write, that is perfect because it will help you stay consistent. And you will find a lot of times when you're writing, if that juices start flowing, you'll suddenly make more time for it because you're excited about writing.
Yeah.
There were times when I wrote so much that I was so excited that I just wanted to keep writing because I'm excited about what I'm actually putting down on paper. So first of all, you need to decide that you're going to put time aside. Number two is you have to decide how much time you are able to put aside. 30 minutes is enough if you've planned it out beforehand. The planning is very important. 30 minutes is not enough if you have no plan, because in your mind, you are seeing a chapter that you need to write out, when in actuality, you don't need to write a chapter. All you need to write is an introductory paragraph. 15 minutes is enough to write an introductory paragraph. 15 minutes is enough to write the small introduction for the next subheading. 15 minutes is enough to write the next section for the subheading. 15 minutes and so forth. As you keep writing, you'll find, oh, I'm enjoying this. Now you actually learn your rhythm, how fast you are able to type, how much you can get done within 15 minutes, within 30 minutes, within 1 hour. You will find that you're not even sacrificing sleep anymore. I'm overjoyed to give the sleep over because I like writing, because this is something that you want done. You are passionate about it. So first, make the decision. Number two, set the time aside. 15 minutes is enough if you've got your planning out. And then number three, find a quiet time to write. I write in the evening because I don't like people disturbing me while I'm writing. So I have to wait till they're all sleeping before I start writing, because otherwise it's, maybe a cup of tea or something like that. Check on the dogs, whatever it is like that. Something might disturb me, and then I have to find the rhythm again. Because once I'm in my rhythm, I don't want it to be destroyed. So get consistent with that. And if you can't really still, after all of those things, you still struggle with consistency, have somebody to keep you accountable. Someone who can check on you and say, hey, you said you're going to finish that chapter in this 2 weeks. How far are you? Is it done? What have you done thus far? Somebody who can hold you accountable to make sure that you are actually doing what you said you were going to do.
I think that's huge. I'm amazed at what, and I just want to speak for guys here, is that I'm amazed at what men can achieve when they push into accountability levels, because we're so good at lying to ourselves. And we it's, I will believe every lie I tell myself. And if it's too busy, or it's raining, oh, my foot is sore, oh, we're going to do that. And one other thing as well that I've seen is I've heard a lot of people say, you've got to write at 5 a.m., join the 5 a.m. club and write. But I know there's a lot of people that are not functional at 5 a.m. My wife is zero complimenters in the morning. She's an evening person. If my wife was writing, she'd be writing like you from 11 o'clock in the evening until 3 in the morning, because that's when her brain is alive. Me, I'm a morning guy. I do a lot of writing between 6 and 8 in the morning, and I'll sit down and I get that. And then I feel as though I've achieved my creativity quotient for the day, and the rest of the day is easy. So for me, it's very different. A lot of people like to write at lunchtime because that's when their brain is kind of in between. So they'll take an hour or two at the middle of the day. So I think it's up to the individual to know your rhythm, to find when you're in the flow, to be able to, because there's nothing worse than trying to be creative when your system is going, it's time for an afternoon nap. Okay. Or a mid-morning nap, or a late afternoon nap, whatever it is. Those are the types of things. And I think to be autocratic with these things, if you are signing into one of these writing accountability things at the wrong time, you're going to struggle. And I think that's exactly so. It becomes very, very personal. with that. Let's go to editing, because now, okay, so we've got our framework, we've got our outline, we've done our stuff. We write, we get to the X amount, and I don't think there's a prescriptive number of words. It depends what you're writing, but say 25,000 words, just to throw a number out there. And we get a book and we finish and we type, last full stop, done. Are we ready to publish? Talk to me about editing. How important is editing? Is it a requirement in the self-publishing? If you're just going to create an ebook, do I need to go and hire an editor? How do we edit? What are the various ways? Let's unpack that for a few minutes.
Before I go there, let's make it 25,000, 30,000. That's usually my cut-off points for people. Usually because when you publish a book, and most people obviously want their book in print. If you're going to publish in print, you want your book at least to be thick enough for the spine, for your name to be on the spine. And if it's less than 30,000, you don't really get that. I remember when you edit, you're also cutting out a lot of things. I've had people that when they get their book, they're shocked about how thin it is, and I tell them, I told you this. You cut out so many things, of course it's going to be thin. But yeah, so let's make it 30,000. When it comes to editing, if you're going to self-publish a book, you first have to understand that how important is this book for you? I've got books where I haven't sent it to professional editors, and I've got books where I have sent it through. The books where I haven't is just books that I felt like I wanted to write. But it's not books that I know I'm going to heavily invest into marketing and all those things for. So if you feel like you're not going to heavily invest into promoting this book, you don't need a professional editor. You can edit on your own. If you do feel that this is your magnus opus, something that you want to actually push heavily, then I always recommend having a professional editor, and not just a normal spelling and grammar checker, because you can do that with AI. Have someone who is doing structural checks, developmental checks. That's the kind of editing that I always do. I don't ever charge for, if somebody asks me for spelling grammar checks, I tell them, no, I don't do that. I only do developmental editing, because I know myself. If I'm editing somebody's book and I see there's a glaring problem, I'm going to fix it. I know I'm going to fix it. So let me rather charge one time for that. But when you're doing self-editing, so self-editing is a must. Either if you're not going to push it, even if you are going to, self-editing is a must. I usually do it in 4 phases. This is for fiction. In the 4 phases, I focus. Number 1 is I just read the story, normal grammar and spelling checks, and I read it as a reader. I have a written book, a book where I can actually make notes, where I can say page this and this, where the changes must be. Then I'll do a world building check. After that, I'll do a glaring story problem check. So I said chapter 1, this guy can't swim. Suddenly he's swimming in chapter 3. What happened there? So I do the change like that. And then I do a 4th, again, final grammar and spelling check before I send it through to somebody. With nonfiction, you want to do also multi-level editing. So first, go through it, and do a normal spelling grammar check. Use Grammarly. Grammarly is very good. I use Grammarly. I love it. And if you're writing nonfiction, try using the pro version. Because when you're writing nonfiction, you also want it to sound professional. You don't need Grammarly for you don't need the pro version if you're going to write fiction. So nonfiction, use the pro version. Then after that, I'll do structural checks. Maybe I should switch these chapters around. I don't think this fits in this chapter. Maybe move it there and so forth. All of those kind of things. Then finally, I go through: is there a good balance of fact plus storytelling? Something that I always tell people is that what you are feeding people, the message in your book, that's the roast chicken that you are giving them. They want that. That's what they came to eat. But the roast chicken without any spice on it is bland. They're going to spit it out. They're not going to want to eat it. No matter how good it is to them, they're not going to want to eat it. So the spice is your story. You need to spice that that message with your story to make it relatable, understanding, transparent. So I look, is there enough of a blend of story and message? And how does that work? So, for example, some chapters I find, like if I go through people's edits, I see there's no story in this chapter at all. So the story just reads like something very boring. Go back, add story in there. Look, is there enough story? Or in certain cases, is there too much story and no message? Add more. I had somebody, I edited, well, didn't edit, I was coaching him through his book. I did a 2-day thing with him where he told me his book is ready and it was only 6,000 words. And I told him, let's go through the book. We went through the manuscript and I highlighted certain statements from it that I told him, this is a golden statement. Flesh it out more. This is enough for a chapter on its own. This one sentence is a chapter on its own that you could have fleshed out. Because in your book, there are hidden gems like that where you need to be able to flesh it out. Right? So that's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to look at multiple layers. So spelling, grammar, is there enough story? What's your message? Are there hidden gems that you want to flesh out? Is the structure right? Is the chapter construction, everything all perfect that you in the way that you want it? That's your self-editing. Then you need to find somebody who can be a beta reader, somebody who's just going to read your book and give you the honest truth. Please do not give somebody who's going to coax your ego. Give it to somebody who you know is going to tell you this is good or this is trash and how to fix, right? So give it to somebody. I saw somebody ask, can you use AI reliably? I would use AI for certain things. For example, for spelling and grammar checks, use AI for an idea of what to do. Let AI do that, but don't let AI do the editing itself. They can tell you these are where the changes should be made. I suggest do these changes, but don't let AI do the changes itself. You do the changes so that you keep your tone of voice. Remember, when somebody reads your book and they want to invite you up to speak, this is why I don't agree with AI writing. If somebody reads your book and they invite you to speak on stage, they expect the person in that book to come speak on stage. So your writing needs to be your voice, the things you say. I have people read my book and they say, I can tell this is Kyle.
Yeah.
Because it's my joke, my sense of humor, all these things that's deeply me is in my book. To phrase correctly is also fine. Just to get things, remember, if you're writing nonfiction, it's okay to use AI to phrase things correctly. But again, you don't want AI to do the work for you. Rather do it yourself so that you know. Sometimes AI tries to change words or the way that you say things. Sometimes I like to use like a repetitive motion when I'm writing because that's just how I speak. And then AI wants to change it. I said, no, I don't want to change this because this is me. They need to know this is me.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be very careful about AI changing your personality in your book because your personality does shine through your writing.
Yeah,
And
no, I
it's very
think
important that you have it in there.
that's absolutely vital. And just a little hint on AI as well. If you're using AI, work out your prompt, because it's no good saying, "Here's my book, edit it." You've got to instruct. AI is very good at taking instructions. So you've got to say, assume the role of a senior editor in a science fiction stuff, or assume a role of an academic editor, and AI will be able to play that. If you're using a paid version of AI, it'll also learn your voice and it learns a certain rules. Like I work with Claude, and Claude knows that it's got to edit my stuff in South African, and it actually adds a nogal into one of my other sentences. And I'm going like, cool, now it's learning me, it's understanding my brain and understand. And it says, oh, in reference, and oh, you got the order of your I-5 wrong the other day, so I suggest you fix it. But also, I like what you say there, and I used this recently this week, is I say, edit this document, but tell me where are the edits and where are the inclusions, and give me an editor's brief afterwards, and it was about a 6-page thing, and it says, this is the section, this is what it is, this is what I recommend it is. And you can actually copy and paste that if you want, but you have a choice then, rather than it just doing this global edit and putting in all the Z's instead of the S's, because it's assuming America rules, and you've got to instruct it, like write South African English, write this is the audience, this is the voice. And the more you give it, the better that first edit is going to be. And I think that saves a whole lot of time, because editing can be very expensive. And I've seen people, pay, a good chunk of change up for that. Okay, in the interest of time, let's move on. Publishing. Now that we've got our book finished, written, edited already, we're going to skip the whole cover design and ISBN numbers and all that sort of stuff, because that's a whole nother separate stuff, and the legal stuff of copyright and copy left is a word I learned last week, copyright and copy left, and play around with this. Let's talk about putting your book into the market. So there's a number of options that people would say. Do I just go to the local print shop and print it, staple it, because it's under 30,000 and I can staple it? Or do I go to a printer? And we've got a couple of guys who will print on demand. In South Africa, it's becoming more and more popular and easy. You don't have to go print 10,000 books on your first run, because they're using plates and all sorts of stuff. Or do I go just ebook and save as PDF and put it there? Or do I go Amazon and go put it in the Kindle store? What are the pros and cons of each of those? I think let's just look at that.
Oh, I must make sure I got the structure in my. I've got the whole PowerPoint on this. Okay, so I usually see 4 types of publishing.
Okay.
So it is traditional publishing, it is self-publishing outsourcing, it is self-publishing on your own, and then there's hybrid publishing. Those are the 4 that I've identified, and I've used all 4. The first is traditional publishing, and it's the one that most people think of. It's definitely the one that I first wanted to do. Traditional publishing is when you find a publishing house to publish your book for you, and they'll do all the work. They'll do the cover design, they'll do the editing, they'll do the publishing, they'll put it on sites, they'll get your ISBN, they'll find a distributor, they'll get your books in the stores. They'll do all of it, right? The pros of that is that they've already got the networks. So you don't have to run around looking for people. They've got the networks already. Number 2 is sometimes they've already got a good audience base. So sometimes people will automatically buy just because this publisher said so. Then number 3 is it's free. You don't have to give up upfront cash or anything. It's free. They'll take care of the cost for you. Right? So those are the 3 pros when it comes to the traditional publishing. And usually also, if I want to add a number 4th, this is the one that mattered the most to me, is it actually gives you a bit more of a completionist sense of somebody else has validated my work.
Yeah.
Because when it's self-publishing, you can search people. Some people say, no, you just self-publish a book. It doesn't matter. It only counts if a publisher. I've had a publisher do it. So it's a validation for your work. So those are the 4, right? But remember, it's just an ego boost. That's the pros. The cons is that, number 1, they will take a massive royalty cut because they are the ones that are giving out all the cash. They put in the risk out there. So the deal that I had was 80-20 split. So I got 20% of the royalties. They got 80% of the royalties. And they won't give you a, what do they call it? An advance check unless you are famous. So if you're hoping for that, do not hope for that. So that's the 80-20 split. Then number 2 is they take the rights to your book. So the copyright belongs to them eventually. I bought my copyright back after 5 years because that was what was stipulated on our contract. You have to read your contracts carefully. I knew after 5 years I get it. So I put on my calendar 5 years in advance, ask for your back, and I bought my rights back. Then the third one is, which is the worst one, which is it takes forever to find a publisher. It took me 7 years. If your book is good, you go into you have to first, sometimes, like for example, Penguin publishers, they don't just accept unsolicited material. You have to get a literary agent, and the literary agent will push it.
Wow.
So it's a long process to get in somebody, and sometimes it'll take 2 years, even if they say yes. So it's a very long process to get yourself a traditional publisher. You're going to have to apply submit to multiple publishers at once, and each of them have different guidelines. Some say they want the author page that's 1 page long. Some author page that's 3 pages long. Some will say they want a synopsis, 3-page synopsis. Others will say they want the first 3 chapters. Some will say they want the whole book ready. Different things per publisher that you're going to submit to, and then each of them has their own subject line that you have to put into the emails. It's a whole hassle, and if you're someone who doesn't have the time for that whole hassle, rather go to self-publishing. But there's pros and there's cons with traditional publishing. I've done it before, not a fan. I enjoy self-publishing more. Then self-publishing outsourcing is where you find a company who does the same things for you, but you pay them up front. The one that I used was Reach Publishers. I always say their name because they did a good job. They did a good job, but it was expensive. And you're gonna have to be ready to fork up at least maybe 20 to 30,000, sometimes more. I submitted one of my new books to them just to see how much they're gonna charge me, and it was 45,000 because of the size of the book. So you have to be ready to fork up money for them, but they will do everything that a traditional publisher does. But you have to make sure you got the upfront cash. That way you get all the copyright yourself and you get all the royalties yourself. Then the third one is self-publishing, where you do it yourself, which is the one that I do for me and for my clients. It's where you find somebody who can do each individual things. There might be certain things that you're comfortable doing. You're comfortable doing the cover design, or you've got somebody who's an editor and will do it for free. So you give each individual task to somebody. Or you give each individual task to one person and let that person quote you for each individual task, and you can decide which one you want and which one not, and negotiate. That's the kind of publishing that I do for my clients. I tell them this is how much the editing costs, this is how much the formatting will cost, this is how much cover design will cost, this is how much online things will be, and all those things I break it up for them so they can choose which one do you actually want, or do you want the whole package, whatever, and so forth. Or you do everything on your own. I've learned now to do everything on my own. The only thing that I ever pay for is editing, especially if it's a book that I want to really push. I pay for editing. And then the fourth one is what they call hybrid publishing. And this one I do want to recommend everybody stay away. Hybrid publishing is the publishers that you find on Facebook. Usually they are the ones that you find on Facebook. They'll have an ad running, a promo running, where they say publish a book for 6,000 or publish a book for 12,000 rand. Anytime somebody gives you a publishing cost without actually doing a proper quote on the book, how many words and all those things, and how much work is going to be put into it, they're going to give you low value work. I've had so many people come cry to me, say, oh, the publisher did this terrible thing, and it's because you paid 6,000 for them to publish a book. Publishing a book is not going to be 6,000. And they did this cheap editing, which is basically they just put it into AI. They did cheap editing. They did a terrible cover because they just, it's basically a thing of you wanted cheap publishing, very low value. The pros there is that it's cheap. You get it for 6,000, right? The cons is that they still take the rights to your book. You paid for it, and they still take the rights to your book. And number two is you still get a royalty split. Sometimes it's a bit more, like 30, 70 or 40, 60, but there's still a royalty split also. And okay, it will be much quicker than traditional publishing, but I don't think it's worth it. And most people, they end up crying because they don't like how the book came out, because a lot of people, your book is like your baby. And now somebody messed it up for you. You came out with a deformed baby because you wanted a cheap doctor.
Okay. Wow.
Find a good, reputable publisher or somebody that you know that where you have a lot more control. So in the self-publishing world, you have a lot more control over how things come out. So that's the publishing options.
Wow.
Then
Okay. Complex. Yeah.
when it comes to ebooks, Amazon is your best spot because Amazon controls 70% of the ebook market. Um, there's two options. There's Kindle Select, which is where only Amazon can exclusively sell your book. But then you have the option of there's some people who subscribe to Amazon and they can read the book for free and you get a royalty per page that they read. Or you can just go wide, which is you go on Amazon, plus you go on like Smashwords, Kobo, Tolino, Viglio, and you can publish on all of those using draft to digital. Um, the nice thing about Amazon is that they've made it, most of the authors are not affiliated with any publisher. So they've made it super easy for authors to publish. You don't need fancy editing. You don't need fancy formatting. Just take your Word document and you can upload that and they'll fix it for you.
Yeah.
Because most of the authors are not tech savvy. Right, so Word document is enough. It only gets very difficult once you have a picture or something in there. Then it gets difficult. Then I suggest that you format it. But again, Amazon has created Kindle Create, which is a way to format your Word document into Kindle format and see how it plays out beautifully for you. So that's an easy way. Amazon also does print books, so you can put your book and Amazon will print it. It doesn't cost you anything. It will only, once somebody buys the book, they will pay for the print cost and the distribution cost, and you'll get a royalty out of that. No upfront costs with Amazon. But in South Africa, most people don't buy print books from Amazon. I know I don't. I buy my print books from Takealot. I love Takealot. And to get your book on Takealot, you're going to need a company called Print on Demand. I've got a deal with Print on Demand where I get discounts from them because I usually send so many books to them at once. So like the last load, I sent about 10 books to them. So I get a discount for them and obviously discounts for my clients. So if you do want to get your book on Takealot, you can contact me. I'll work with that. But that's a good way to get distribution across. Distribution is probably one of the most difficult ways, difficult parts of publishing your book because initially I didn't want a distributor because what happens is, let's say you print the book at 50 Rand. That's the printing cost. Then you sell the book at 120. And then from there, the distributor will raise the price up by 60%, and they'll get the books into the bookstores, and the bookstores will also again raise the price even more. And suddenly you have this massive cost price for the book. So usually what I did in the beginning was I just used Pexi, Pepexi, but then I found out quickly the demand of that is terrible because if people are constantly asking for your book, now you have to constantly go back to Pep to do these things, and it's so irritating. So if you want your book in stores, you're going to have to use a distributor, usually, or somebody who has a contact in that store, because they are very iffy about which kind of books they allow in the stores. A distributor is the best way to get your book into stores across the country. I'm struggling with the name of mine, but there's a few others. There's Blue Owl or something like that. There's Puffin Books. There's so many other distributors that you can think of that will get your books into the stores. But I do also want people to understand that even if your book is in stores, it doesn't mean that you're going to make any sales.
Yeah.
My book has been in stores for 2 years. I haven't gotten a single royalty payment from the in-store books. I make most of my sales through my ebooks or through selling it myself. Because the only way you're going to get books sold in stores is if you sending traffic to the store.
Yeah.
So you have to get that understanding.
That's amazing. Carl, I'm just concerned about time. We almost at the top of the hour. We got like 2 minutes left. I just want to close off by saying that, you know, obviously you've highlighted that it's not just about writing. It's a complex process. You've got to set aside a good couple of months for this, and I like you offer all those things. You've got your initial like planning, and then you've got your 6-month and 12-month campaign. I think if anybody is concerned about getting their book out, there are ways to help. You don't have to do this journey alone. And even if you're not paying up front for a whole lot of things, come and join, because we're going to have a lot more of these sort of things in Voices into Africa. There's a lot of other people that are writing books at the moment, and just sharing those little accountability groups. Find 2 or 3 other people in Voices into Africa writing. Meet once a month. I've got a Friday lunchtime, half an hour mastermind. And we meet literally 12 o'clock to 12:30, and we keep it very strict on that. And it's just that a weekly accountable. Have you done the work? Whatever you're doing there, this is what I've achieved. Right, we'll see you next week. And that's all it is. And it's that the amount of work I do. It's like, oh, it's Friday, I'm going to do my own work. And it just builds that level of accountability. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I think that's what I've learned from you today. There's so much that you've learned, that we don't have to do this journey alone and go like, oh, I need to learn how to do flipping Amazon, because creating an Amazon page, you say it's so easy. I'm going like, it's really complicated. But once you've done it, you've learned. And once you put a book into Kindle Create, and once you've done a cover, and once you find ISBN numbers, all those little things, it becomes easy. It's just that process. So I think there's a huge value in what you offer. And I thank you for your time. You could have written like 5,000 words in the time that you've spent with us. But thank you very much for this. We are going to put this recording up and share it with others, and we'll put your contact details. But also just want to have a little promo of Voices into Africa in the next few months. We're doing some really interesting stuff. There is a book festival that we are partnering with later on in August down in Cape Town. So if you are interested in launching a book, there's a deadline to get to, and come down to Cape Town. If you're in the area, you can come. They're all going to be held on wine farms, apparently, which is a double plus. Books and wine go well together. And we're about to sort that out. So more information on that. We've got the Pan-Africa Speakers Summit coming up in a couple of months. That call for speakers is going to go out soon as well. So if you want to speak about your book or your ideas and stuff, make sure that you put your hand up for that. And we've got a whole bunch of really interesting information. We also harping quite a lot on MCs. We are putting together an MC workshop for next month or early June. And if you are an aspiring MC or want to expand your speaking process beyond just writing and beyond speaking into the MC world, we are putting together some workshops with international qualifications to be obtained in that area as well. So we've got Spotlight that is running very well, the Red Jacket Spotlight, of finding gigs for you. If you're not part of the Red Jacket Spotlight program, it's in full force now. We've ironed out all the crinks and creaks, and it is now working well. And there are more spots available on Spotlight coming up at the end of this month, like next week. So watch out for that email. And we are very, very excited about where we are going. And there is huge opportunity. And yeah, Carl, thanks again for your input and your wisdom and your experience. We didn't get through everything, but I think we need 6 months to get through everything that's involved in authoring. But all we ask is, please start. And don't start writing, start planning. I think that's the big take home with us. So thank you very much for everyone who's attended. And we will chat to you next time on our next Voices into Africa webinar or workshop. Thank you very much. Cheers.